federal government has repeatedly stated there's been an 80% reduction in asylum seeker boat arrivals since Operation Sovereign Borders began.
And the Immigration Minister Scott Morrison made the claim again in Parliament yesterday.
This government is putting in place the measures that has led to a more than 80% reduction in illegal arrivals to Australia by boat since that operation was put in place. Now, those opposite, Madam Speaker, they don't like to hear that figure. They don't like to hear that, particularly the Don Bradman of Border Failure, the manager of opposition business, because he holds the record for the highest level of illegal arrivals by boat of any immigration minister in our history.
So that's the Immigration Minister's claim, an 80% reduction since Operation Sovereign Borders began. But the ABC's fact-checking unit has found, well, it's not that simple. To tell us more about their investigation, we're joined by the presenter of ABC Fact Check, John Barron. John, good morning. What have you found?
Good morning, Michael. Of course, it is never that simple in the fact-checking business. The funny part of it is, though, that 80% claim from Scott Morrison checks out by the numbers. If you look at the average weekly asylum seeker arrivals since Operation Sovereign Borders came in mid to late September, it's around 70. And if you look at the period from mid-July through to mid-September, after Kevin Rudd had announced his regional resettlement program, by which basically asylum seekers will never be settled in Australia, they'll be sent to Nauru or Manus Island instead, there are about 430 arrivals on average per week. But what's important about this, I want you to have a look at this graph that we've got for you, Michael. Now, there you should be able to see a trend line. From the left, there it is in July. You're getting 400, 500, 600 or more arrivals a week, up to 900 after the policy was announced. And then there is a quite dramatic tailing off, almost down to zero at the time of the election, ironically enough. Then Operation Sovereign Borders comes in and it has stayed down at those lower levels, bounces up and down a little bit because, of course, one boat can throw out the a statistical average because we're dealing with quite small numbers here. But that is significant because all of the experts, the analysts that we've spoken to looking at the data in this area, Michael, are saying that there was a trend that began not with Operation Sovereign Borders and the Coalition, but with Kevin Rudd's policy on the 19th of July.
You have obtained these figures, and who are the sort of experts you've run them by, John?
Well, we've been talking to people who are experts in the field of data analysis as well as in the field of asylum seeker arrivals. And they point out as well, I've got another graph to show you here, and this is the bigger picture. We just saw the weekly arrivals over the last 5 months in total, but this stretches back more than 4 years. And you can see just what a dramatic decline there has been since July of this year. But also look back to 2012. There was a big spike and a big decline last year as well. And that's important. The experts say, look, governments like to be able to claim responsibility for this, or former governments for that matter, and both sides are trying to claim credit for the apparent short-term success of the current policies, Michael. But they also say there are lots of other factors, seasonal factors, regional factors, geopolitical factors, and even in the case of July this year, it's not as simple as Kevin Rudd saying, oh, gee, I was right after all, because at that time, Indonesia changed its visa policies, not automatically giving Iranians who arrived in Indonesia a visa, which was proving to be a major transit point onto Australia. The number of Iranians coming to Australia via Indonesia has almost dried up, and they were a very significant part of the latest wave over the last 6 months or so. So it may not be anything that either party has done in this country. It may be external factors, or indeed, perish the thought, it could be a little bit of all of the above. It could be a case of a number of different factors, a number of different policies coming together to see this decline.
It's very thorough research, John. OK, let's finish up. How would you describe Scott Morrison's claim in fact-check parlance? A stretch, overreach?
Well, we can say on the one hand, the statistical claim of 80%, it does check out, but his claim of credit for it is very hard to sustain. So he really does go too far in claiming credit for this. He's not telling the full story.
John Barrett from Fact Check, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Michael.